Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about MSC's Virtuosa. This is probably going to be the last review I do on this in this series, and I want to go through the good and the bad. Come with me. So this ship, MSC Virtuosa, is a Meraviglia Plus class cruise ship, and it's 181,000 tons. It was released in and christened in 2021, so it's only a few years old, and it does feel very bright and fresh and very modern on the inside, which is very nice. It has 16 decks on it, and it's roughly double the size of Cunard's Queen Victoria. That was a ship we went on a few months ago, and you can tell by just the sheer layout on the size of the ship that it's very kind of open and bright and spacious. And it's very similar, I think, in terms of design to other ships we've been on before, like Royal Caribbean's Oasis class ships. All in all, I think that the ship design is really good. I think it's quite modern, and I think it's got a lot of nice open spaces. The central atrium is really nice, very impressive. It has an amazing LED screen on the ceiling in the promenade space, which I think is very cool. I think it's something that Royal Caribbean should adopt. But overall, yeah, in terms of the ship design, I think it's really nice. Some of the spaces on board the ship can be quite small, and I feel like some of the lighting and some of the way in which they've decorated some of the spaces can feel a little bit enclosed. The buffet being one of them, it's kind of lots of black and white, and I feel like that kind of closes the space in a little bit and makes it feel a little bit claustrophobic. I think that's where they could kind of open things up a bit and make it a little bit, feel a little bit more open and bright and spacious. So in terms of design, I really like this ship. I think it's actually quite well laid out and quite clear. They've made good use of technology on the ship. So, for instance, in the promenade area, you've got a very cool screen on the ceiling, an LED screen, which changes. They, I think, make good use of it as well. So during the muster drill, they actually print the evacuation plan on the ceiling so you can see it directly above you, which I think is quite cool. They put lots of, like flags from the places that you're in as well, which is quite cool. And they then have lots of evening entertainment in that space as well. So I think it's a nice space. I think it's quite impressive, and I think that the promenade area is actually very similar to other cruise lines we've been on before. I think it's a nice focal point. I think some cruise lines now are trying to get away from that kind of promenade idea, but I actually quite like it as a kind of central meeting place. It's quite cool. The ship has also got, I think, quite a lot of decoration that you could consider blingy. I think it's lots of mirrors and sparkly kind of stairs. You've got Swarovski stairs in the central atrium area, and then also in the yacht club. And I think that the color scheme they've got is like purples and like a blues and greys everywhere, which it's nice, and it feels like it feels like good quality. And I think that the general central parts of the ship are, I think, quite nice and comfortable, and quite modern. So from a design perspective, I quite like the layout of the ship. It's great. Bars. So we walked all the way around the ship, and we'd seen a lot of them. We'd also queued up for a couple of them as well. The ones around the pool were really busy. The queues were really long, so we avoided those. We did end up going to the champagne bar every night. We did it for the LGBTQ meetup. It was very, very busy. I mean, every single table was taken, all of the chairs were taken. I will have to give credit if anyone knows of the amazing people working in the LGBTQ meetup on that ship. They were really good, and again, this is where I take all credit given to them. They were kind of walking through the space, and they were trying to get people who were there for that all kind of together, which I thought was really great. Again, a lot of other cruise lines don't do they're not hosted events. This wasn't. I don't know if this was actually meant to be hosted, but it was really great that they made that effort. So really appreciate that there. Otherwise, I don't know if we'd actually have ever found people there, because it was just so busy. I mean, there was a very long queue. I'd say about 10-15 people in the queue for champagne there as well. You basically have to order a drink right there and then pick it up, and they just move you through the kind of the queue, and then you take them straight away. The bar was, I think, organised in a way in which they were trying to get people through it as quickly as possible. But yeah, it did feel very busy in that space, and that's something that I think they could probably reduce down a bit if they were to reduce the load in other parts of the ship. We just noticed that all of the bars were all very busy. We did go to the Starship bar, which is it's like a bionic bar where you've got a robot bartender serving there. We did also queue up for that. There was a very long queue there. Now, I do know that the drinks are not included if you have a drinks package, either a standard one or a premium one. None of those drinks are included at that bar, so you have to pay them and they get charged to your room. So it's just worth noting that. And it's a nice touch, but again, I think it's a bit gimmicky. Once you've booked a drink there, once you've done it, that's it. It's a cool opportunity to take a video. Otherwise, I'm not sure. And then for the most part, we were in the Topsail Lounge in the yacht club, where they had a dedicated bar. Again, very nice. There was a bartender there. Again, he was very, very busy all the time. And they were trying to do table service, but it just got so busy a lot of the time. People went to the bar and just, got a drink directly. But you could tell that, again, even there, they were stretched in terms of staffing. So it's just another common theme I felt across the ship. Okay, so dining. We had access to the yacht club, so we used the yacht club dining space for most of it. We did also have a booking in the Butcher's Cut, which is their dedicated steakhouse on board, and we did that for lunch on the second day. Again, we've done a full review of that. I would say that I think actually for that meal, I think that was actually one of the best steaks we've had at sea. It was really good, and considering how we were slightly delicately feeling on that day, I didn't have much of an appetite, but the food was very good. The bread basket at the very start was lovely as well. I just thought that they did a very good cut of steak, and I think we didn't have to pay extra for the surf and turf, so we did lobster and steak, and I think it was actually really nice to have that. We have found on other cruise lines that they've reduced down the sizes of portions of steak, and normally you have to pay extra for lobster, which you didn't have to do here. So I would say that in terms of steaks, this is one of the best ones I've had at sea, and I would recommend it actually. It's very good. And then in terms of the yacht club dining, now I think that the dining food was probably very similar to that in the main dining room. We had dinner there and we had breakfast there. The food was okay. It was pretty good. I had steak again. I had soup for starters in the evening. The service was not brilliant. I mean, we both struggled on both times. We both felt that the staff weren't particularly very happy on the ship. They looked like they were really rushed, and they looked like they were under a lot of pressure. I think probably the crew to passenger ratio was probably off kilter, even in the yacht club as well. There didn't seem to be that many people serving. They had a brilliant sommelier in there, but he was walking all the way around all of the tables to check on everyone. It just felt like they didn't have enough time to focus on people, which felt like it was evident with the food as well. I had some soup which was, dangerously hot, and I did ask them about it, but they were struggling. There was an issue with no crackers for cheese, which we ordered. It's not a big deal, I know, it's kind of first world problems, but it just meant that we ended up not having dessert basically. And then at breakfast time, I had a similar situation. I had a bowl of porridge. It was just terrible, to be honest. Cold, and it had been made with water as if it was like from a sachet. It was not good. And then they told me they'd run out of bacon, so they ended up giving me English bacon. They had no American nor Canadian bacon, which was a bit weird because I imagine they'd have some in the buffet. I can't imagine they would have run out on a 3-day cruise. I think the yacht club, in terms of the overall space, is lovely. I think though the food in the dining room was not brilliant, to be honest. I'd also say as well that we went to the buffet. We did the late night buffet on the ship. This is another big tick, I think, from me. Royal Caribbean, and again, it's kind of the closest point I can use really as an example, because I feel like they're very similar in terms of comparison between two cruise lines. Royal Caribbean have stopped doing buffets late at night, whereas MSC have continued to do them, which I think is a really nice touch. The food was actually very good in the buffet. It was busy. We had to queue up a bit to get the food, but considering what we had was just fairly simple food, they did it well. It was hot, it was fresh, and I even commented on one of my videos about how good the food was when we were eating it, because I think sometimes you can end up getting food that's been under a heat lamp for a few hours and it ends up being soggy and horrible, but this wasn't like that. This was very good, and I think it's such a nice touch to have a late night buffet on a ship. I think it's what differentiates cruise ships from on land, all-inclusive resorts, is these kind of luxuries where you get things like food late at night after you've had a few drinks and you've gone to a bar or a pub, is having that food, rather than having to go to like a pizza restaurant, you know, in a promenade. Having all of that selection and all of that choice, I think, is a really cool thing. So thumbs up from me there, from MSC. Entertainment. So I'd taken the advice of a lot of you guys on vlogs, and so we decided that we would prepay to go to the Carousel Lounge. So the Carousel Lounge is a dedicated space where they do shows. It's actually pretty cool. It's a bit like Cirque du Soleil at sea. You have to pay for it in advance. If you pay for it in advance on the app, it costs £9 per person, and that includes a cocktail as well. The cocktail did, unfortunately, taste very watered down. It didn't really taste like much apart from lemonade, but it's a nice touch to have that anyway. And the space is not particularly very big. The stage is centrally located, and then all the seats are around it, and it's directly facing the water. Now it's in the evening that we were there, so all the blinds were closed, but it was a cool space. I did a little video at the start before the show started, but you weren't allowed to record. The show there was quite cool. You had people walking along the side wall as well of the actual stage, and again, it was kind of like a Cirque du Soleil kind of show. It was called Alchemia. There were a couple of shows that they do there. The one we did was very cool. It was a bit steampunky, but yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. I thought it was quite nice. We don't tend to do shows at sea, but I would say £9 isn't much to pay. I think if you're on board and you pay, I think it's £15. I don't think that's too much to pay for a show, to be honest with you. And then we went to the Royal Theatre. We didn't actually watch a show there. I know some other people had watched shows there. I don't know much about them. If you have seen it, any shows in the main theatre, please drop a comment and let me know what you think of them, because I can't really comment in this section. But the theatre looked quite nice anyway. I'm going to assume it was probably quite busy like the other parts of the ship. I think they had a silent disco on as well. Again, we didn't see that. We went to the entertainment in the Topsail Lounge. They had a live singer there. She was very good, and it was a really nice way to end an evening. All right. The good things about the ship, and there are a number of them. I like the layout of the ship. I think that the ship, particularly the open areas, are pretty cool. I like the fact that the pool deck has quite an expansive space around it, which means that you can fit quite a lot in there. I think it actually makes it quite an inviting space as well. I think that the back of the ship, also the kind of tiered effect, is quite cool. There's a pool at the back as well. I think it's the Lido pool, and that's quite nice, and that also feeds into the buffet area, so the area generally feels quite open and friendly. And then you've got the Savannah Water Park, which I think is a nice touch there at the top, and I think it means that then you can have the areas quite well separated. I think that the modern design and the newness of the ship are quite nice. Now obviously that might not stay that way, but right now it feels very modern and clean. Overall, I like the size of the ship. I like the market it's feeding, which is the UK. I think that the competitors in the same market are quite different. At the moment, as of 2025, you've got Royal Caribbean's Independence of the Seas, which is docked at Southampton. Now that ship is quite old. It's about 20 years old, which means that if you're looking for a more modern ship, Virtuosa is definitely going to beat that. And then you've also got things like Cunard's Queen Victoria, which was there recently as well, which again is quite an old ship. I know there are other lines there. I know that the Princess has a ship docked there as well, but I think that really, you know, the UK market doesn't get a great deal of modern super mega ships, so I think Virtuosa is probably the standout here when it comes to that. So those are my thoughts on all the good bits. And then the bad bits. The ship is very, very busy. I think in terms of density, it's one of the most dense ships that you've got. I think that in terms of passenger ratio to crew, I think that there's not much in terms of crew on board compared to other cruise lines. I know that this is very, very busy. I think that it might probably have been worse because of the fact that we were on a bank holiday weekend, so you've got different demographics of people on board, but it just felt that all of the main spaces outside of the yacht club were really, really congested, and traffic flow through them was actually very, very difficult. We were, even viewing things like the mandatory muster drill, which you go to. You have to go to the muster point. Now it's just chaos, I've got to be honest. We were there and there were hundreds of people all in the same space, which feels like a bit of a health and safety hazard. If you're going to a muster point to prepare for and get yourself familiarised with the point that you're at in case of an emergency. This wasn't an emergency and it was terrible. In the event of an actual disaster, I do worry about how all these people would be able to go through this space, because it was just chaotic, to be honest. And then that followed on throughout things like the buffet as well, where there were just hundreds of people queuing up for the food there. Silent disco. So the silent disco was actually at the Cplex, which is the multi-function space where they have it's like a basketball court. They do multi-activities in there as well, but that space was used for the silent disco at night. Now the queue for that was also very, very long. There's a video here of it, you'll see. We gave up waiting, to be honest, because I think by the time you got there, I'd read that they actually ran out of space and they refused to let people in because it was too busy. So there were lots of those things happening, and I would say we've done 15 previous cruises. We've never had a situation before where we've had to give up waiting to get into spaces because they were too long, and I think we're pretty good at queuing up. I think it's a shame. I think that they could probably manage it in a slightly better way, find other venues where they could accommodate more people, because I think otherwise people just get turned away. Thanks for watching, as always. Do appreciate your time. If you have any comments, please leave them below, and if you would like to subscribe and like, I'd be most appreciative. Thanks, bye.